I never thought I'd be the guy who checks his wife's phone. That's what paranoid husbands do, right? The kind of men who can't trust their partners. The kind I used to judge. But here I am, sitting in my Tesla Model 3 outside our Seattle home, watching Sarah through the living room window as she frantically types on her phone. My wife of 4 years. The woman I thought I knew better than anyone. For years of building a life together, sharing dreams, and planning our future. And now I'm the guy who can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. It started 3 months ago. Little things at first. The way she'd angle her phone away from me when texting. How she'd step outside to take calls. The sudden late meetings that kept her at the office until 9 or 10 at night. I'm not stupid. I'm a senior software engineer at Quantum Tech, one of Seattle's hottest startups. I solve complex problems for a living. But this puzzle, the mystery of my wife's changing behavior, has me stumped. You're overthinking it, Mike told me last week over beers at our usual spot. Mike Shun, my best friend since college, and our company's head of cybersecurity. Sarah's up for that big promotion, right? She's probably just stressed. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. But then came last night. I was working late at the office, debugging a critical system issue. Around 8 p.m., I decided to surprise Sarah at her office. She'd texted earlier saying she had another late meeting. I figured we could grab dinner together afterward. The security guard knew me. I'd picked Sarah up plenty of times before. But when I reached the 14th floor where her marketing team worked, the office was dark. Empty. No late meeting. No Sarah. Just rows of silent desks and blank computer screens. I called her cell. It went straight to voicemail. That's when I felt it, that cold, heavy feeling in my gut. The one that tells you something's seriously wrong. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing through possibilities, each one worse than the last. Sarah got home around 11 p.m. Her cheeks were flushed, hair slightly disheveled, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. "Hey, you're still up," she said, surprised to see me on the couch. "How was the meeting?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, but long enough. Exhausting. We're trying to land this huge client. I watched her talk, noting how she wouldn't quite meet my eyes, how her hands kept fidgeting with her purse strap. And then I caught it, the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne. Not mine, not even close to anything I wear. "I'm going to take a shower," she announced, cutting her story short. As soon as I heard the bathroom door close, I did something I never thought I would. I checked her phone, but Sarah was smarter than that. The phone was locked, and even if it wasn't, I knew she deleted everything Regal. Arlie. I'd noticed that pattern weeks ago. No message history. No call logs. Nothing. That's when I realized I needed help. Professional help. The kind only someone like Mike could provide. The next morning, I caught Mike before our daily stand-up meeting. "I need a favor," I said, pulling him into an empty conference room. The kind that stays between us. Mike's usual grin faded as he saw my expression. "What's going on, Ryan?" I told him everything. The late nights. The secret calls. The cologne. The empty office. When I finished, Mike let out a long breath. "You want me to help you spy on your wife? I want to know the truth." He ran a hand through his hair, thinking. "There's software we use for corporate security audits," he said finally. "It mirrors everything on a phone to a secure server. Messages, calls, locations, even if they're deleted later. Can you get it? Ryan, this is serious stuff. If I help you, there's no going back." "I need to know, Mike." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, but we do this right. No half measures." That night, I suggested hosting a dinner party. "Just a few people from work," I said casually. "Mike and his new girlfriend." Sarah agreed, probably relieved I wasn't asking about her late meetings. The plan was simple. Mike would come over with the software ready to install. I'd keep Sarah distracted while he did his thing. But simple plans have a way of getting complicated. The dinner party was set for Friday night. I spent the week in a state of constant anxiety. Every time Sarah checked her phone, my heart raced. Every late meeting felt like a knife in my gut. But I kept it together. I had to. Friday came, and with it, Mike and his girlfriend, actually a colleague from a security team. Sarah was the perfect hostess, all smiles and charm. She'd even left work early to help prepare. While the women chatted in the kitchen, Mike pulled me aside. "You sure about this?" I nodded. "Do it." The installation took 10 minutes. 10 minutes that felt like 10 hours. I kept Sarah engaged in conversation, laughing too loud at her jokes, playing the role of happy husband. When Mike gave me the subtle thumbs up, I felt sick, not from guilt, but from fear of what I might discover. The next morning, Mike showed me how to access the mirror data. "Everything that happens on her phone will show up here," he explained, "even if she deletes it." I thanked him, but he grabbed my arm before I could leave. "Ryan, whatever you find, be ready for it." I should have listened more carefully to those words, because nothing could have prepared me for what came next. The first few days were quiet. Normal work emails, texts with friends about lunch plans. Nothing suspicious. Then, on Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. A message appeared from a contact saved simply as J. "Missing you already. Last night was incredible." My hands start, edge shaking as I read the response Sarah typed. "Me too. Can't stop thinking about it. When can I see you again?" More messages followed, each one worse than the last. Plans for hotel meetups, inside jokes, intimate photos. I learned his name was James Anderson, a wealthy executive she'd met through work. They'd been seeing each other for 2 months. Every late meeting, every work emergency. All lies. I sat in my office, staring at the screen until my vision blurred. The truth I'd suspected but hoped to never confirm was right there in black and white. My wife was having an affair. That night, I watched Sarah across the dinner table. She was texting, probably with him, while absently pushing food around her plate. "Everything okay?" I asked. Oh yeah, just work stuff." More lies. I wanted to scream, to confront her right there. But Mike's words echoed in my head. "Whatever you find, be ready for it." I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed more. I needed to understand everything. Over the next week, I documented every message, every call, every meeting. I learned that James was married with 3 kids, that he promised to leave his wife for Sarah, that they were planning a future together. While I was debugging code and planning our family, my wife was planning her escape. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd used technology to uncover her betrayal. Now I would use it to plan my response. But first, I had one more person to contact. James Anderson's wife, Victoria. Finding Victoria Anderson wasn't difficult. A few LinkedIn searches and social media checks led me straight to her. She ran a successful interior design firm in Bellevue. I debated for hours how to approach her. Email felt too impersonal. A phone call too awkward. In the end, I decided to visit her office. "Do you have an appointment?" her receptionist asked. "No, but she'll want to speak with me." "Tell her it's about James Anderson." 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from Victoria. Elegant, poised, and completely unaware her world was about to shatter. "What's this about James?" she asked, her perfectly manicured nails tapping her desk. I took a deep breath. "Mrs. Anderson, what I'm about to tell you isn't easy." Her expression shifted as I spoke. First confusion, then disbelief. Finally, a cold, hard anger I recognized all too well. "Show me," she demanded. I handed her my tablet, watched as she scrolled through messages, photos, plans. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady. "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. "And your wife?" "She has no idea, you know." "None." Victoria leaned back in her chair, studying me. "What do you want from me, Mr. Thompson?" "I want justice," I said simply. A small, dangerous smile crossed her face. So do I. We spent the next hour planning. Victoria was sharper than I expected, more strategic. James has a board meeting next Thursday evening. She said. He always uses it as cover for their meetings. I nodded, pulling up Sarah's messages. She's already told me she has a late client dinner that night. Perfect. Victoria's smile grew colder. Let them plan their little rendezvous. But James won't be there. I finished. No, he'll be dealing with me. We laid out every detail, every contingency. Victoria would confront James at home, armed with evidence, while I handled Sarah at the restaurant. Make sure he can't warn her, I insisted. Oh, don't worry about that, Victoria assured me. I have plans for his phone. The next week was the hardest of my life. Watching Sarah prepare for her client dinner, seeing her text James about how excited she was, living with the weight of what I knew. What was coming? She spent hours choosing her outfit. A new black dress that probably cost more than my first car. Heels I'd never seen before. Big client? I asked casually over breakfast. Huge potential account. She lied smoothly. Don't wait up. I watched her get ready that evening. Watch her check her makeup one last time. Kiss me goodbye like it was any other day. Good luck with the client. I called after her. She didn't look back. I waited 30 minutes before heading to Canlis, Seattle's most expensive restaurant, where James had made reservations for two under his name. I got there early, took a table with a clear view of the entrance, ordered a whiskey, and waited. Sarah arrived at 7:30 sharp. She looked stunning, confident, happy. The hostess led her to James's reserved table. I watched her check her phone, frowned slightly. Check it again. 20 minutes passed. She ordered a glass of wine, kept checking her phone. I could see her growing anxiety, the slight tremor in her hand as she lifted her glass, the way she kept glancing at the door. That's when I made my move. I approached her table quietly, pulled out the chair across from her. Hope I'm not too late. Sarah's face went white. The wine glass slipped from her fingers, crashed onto the pristine tablecloth. Ryan, she gasped. What? What are you doing here? Having dinner with my wife, I said calmly. Unless you're waiting for someone else? She tried to recover, to spin another lie. I told you I have a client. James Anderson isn't coming. I cut her off. Her eyes widened. I don't know who. He's at home, I continued, my voice steady. Having a very interesting conversation with his wife. Sarah's composure cracked. Just for a moment. But it was enough. How did you? No. I finished for her. I know everything, Sarah. I pulled out my phone, started reading messages. Her messages. Word for word. With each one, she seemed to shrink smaller. Ryan, I can explain. Can you explain the hotel meetings? The photos? The plans you made together? Tears started rolling down her cheeks, smearing her perfect makeup. I never meant to get caught. I supplied. Or to destroy our marriage? The waiter approached, asked if everything was all right. I ordered a steak, medium rare. Sarah just sat there, trapped. What do you want? She finally whispered. I reached into my jacket, pulled out an envelope, placed it on the table between us. Divorce papers, I said quietly. Already signed by me. Her hands shook as she picked up the envelope. Ryan, please. Your things are packed, I continued. They're on the front lawn. I changed the locks. Any questions can go through my lawyer. I started cutting my steak, taking small, deliberate bites. Sarah sat frozen, the envelope clutched in her trembling hands. You can't do this, she whispered. I looked up from my plate, met her eyes directly. I already have. She stood suddenly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. You're a monster, she hissed. No, Sarah, I replied calmly. I'm just a man who finally stopped believing your lies. She turned, fled the restaurant, left her purse behind. I finished my steak, paid the bill, drove home slowly. When I pulled into our driveway, Sarah's car was there. She was standing among her packed belongings, crying, pounding on the front door. I parked in the garage, went in through the side entrance, turned off my phone, and for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully, knowing the truth was finally out, knowing it was over. But this wasn't the end. Not yet. Sarah wasn't going to go quietly, and the real battle was just beginning. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 38 text messages, most from Sarah, some from numbers I didn't recognize. Her friends, probably. I deleted them all without reading. Mike called as I was making coffee. Dude, have you seen Facebook? I hadn't. Didn't want to. Sarah's posted quite a story, he said carefully. Says you're abusive, controlling, that you hacked her phone and stalked her. I laugh without humor. Well, she's not entirely wrong about the phone part. Ryan, this is serious. She's painting you as some tech-obsessed psycho. I took a sip of coffee, looked out at the empty driveway where Sarah's things had been. Let her, I said finally. I have proof of everything. The next few days were a blur of lawyers and legal documents. Sarah hired Jessica Martinez, Seattle's most aggressive divorce attorney, known for destroying men in court. I went with David Cohen, quiet, methodical, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. She's going for everything, David warned me. The house, alimony, half your stock options. Claims your surveillance constitutes harassment. I handed him a USB drive. Here's everything I have. He spent an hour reviewing the evidence, his expression growing darker with each file. This changes things, he said finally, significantly. The first court appearance was set for Thursday. Sarah arrived with an entourage. Her lawyer, 3 friends I recognized, 2 I didn't. She'd been crying, or pretending to. Her mascara was artfully smudged. I sat quietly with David, watched as Jessica Martinez painted me as a monster. Your Honor, my client lived in fear. Mr. Thompson monitored her every move, invaded her privacy, terrorized her with his technological surveillance. Sarah nodded along, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Then David stood up. Your Honor, before we continue. He gestured to someone at the back of the courtroom. Victoria Anderson walked in. Sarah's face went pale. I'd like to call Mrs. Victoria Anderson to testify. Victoria's testimony was devastating, clinical, precise. She detailed everything. The affair, the lies, the plan Sarah and James had made. Then came the evidence. Messages, photos, hotel receipts. Sarah's lawyer tried to object, argue about privacy violations, but the judge was unmoved. The evidence is admissible, he ruled. I watched Sarah's confident facade crumble, piece by piece. But Victoria wasn't finished. There's more, Your Honor. She explained how Sarah had used her position, how she'd manipulated company resources, used client meetings as cover. By the time Victoria finished, Sarah wasn't just losing her marriage. She was losing everything. Her company's legal team was already involved. Ethics violations, misuse of company resources, breach of contract. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, Sarah's lawyer pulled her aside, their whispered argument echoing off marble walls. Mike appeared beside me. You okay? I nodded. Getting there. Sarah's company called me this morning, he said quietly. They're doing a full audit of her work devices. It's not looking good for her. I should have felt satisfaction, victory. Instead, I just felt tired. When court resumed, Sarah's lawyer requested a brief conference. 20 minutes later, David returned with a settlement offer. She'll agree to an uncontested divorce. No alimony. No claim on the house or stock options. She just wants to end this quietly. I looked across the courtroom. Sarah sat alone now, her entourage gone. She looked small, defeated. Accept it, I told David. Let's end this. The paperwork was signed that afternoon. Sarah didn't meet my eyes once. As we left the courthouse, Victoria caught up with me. James moved out last night, she said. His company asked for his resignation. I'm sorry. I offered. She shook her head. Don't be. We all deserve the truth, even when it hurts. That evening, I sat in our empty house. Sarah's presence still lingered. In the photos I hadn't taken down, the coffee mug she'd left in the sink, the faint scent of her perfume. I opened my laptop, started removing her from my life. One account at a time, one password at a time, one memory at a time. Mike called to check on me. Want to grab a beer? Talk about it. Not tonight, I said. I just need space, he finished. I get it, but don't disappear on me, okay? I promised I wouldn't. Later, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed with a text. From Sarah. I'm sorry. 2 words. Too late. I deleted it without responding. Turn off my phone and try to remember who I was. Before the lies. Before the betrayal. Before everything changed. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow I would start over. But tonight I just needed to breathe. To exist in this moment. Between what was and what would be. The truth had set me free. But freedom, I was learning, comes with its own kind of pain and